that hockey stick is still there, almost identical. Now, why is that? So, they thought, we've got an idea. Let's generate some trendless red noise. How many of you know what trendless red noise is? Yes, you know what trendless red noise is.
I can't answer. I'm a counselor.
Yeah, you can't answer. You're a counselor. Put your hand back down. I don't want to hear from you.
I just want to be part of it.
Stop messing up my class. Anyways, trendless red noise is basically random numbers. When fed into any graph compiler, it should just generate a flat line that doesn't do anything. So they generated random numbers and made, what, 6 graphs? Something like that? Yeah. These were all put into Michael Mann's compiler. You'll notice they're all the same. This is the original down here from A through G. All of these were generated using random numbers. All of them, right around the year 1990, have a giant spike at the end. So if this was a temperature graph, you'd see this and you'd think, wow, it got real hot in 1990, didn't it? Oh, no, it didn't. Turns out you can put anything in there and it'll spike up at the end. Yeah, it's a little questionable there. Yeah, so why did they do this? Why did Michael E. Mann go through all the trouble of messing with numbers? Well, in 1990, the United Nations put out an accurate report. I know this is really shocking. It shocked me too. This is from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in 1990. This graph is a lot different from that graph, isn't it? Notice this one. It's actually a lot warmer around the year 1200 AD than it was now. Admittedly, this is an old graph. It's gotten a bit hotter since then, but still a lot hotter. It's a far cry from the big flat line and then a giant spike up at the end like what you saw earlier. Why the sudden change? Well, the medieval warm period you're seeing right there was a period in history in which it was very, very warm. That's when Greenland was named Greenland, because they got there and found grass and thought, oh gee, it's nice and green. Oh boy, were they mistaken. It was so hot grass was growing in Greenland. That's a pretty big deal. If you go into London, just about every single street is named Vineyard Street, because even in temperate zones where vineyards didn't normally grow, you could put vineyards anywhere because it was just so warm. The climate was so good, agriculture was fantastic. I mean, there was the bubonic plague and terrible things like that, but other than that, it was great. So, this is bad for global warming, because it shows that the Earth has been warmer in the past than it is now. Much warmer, in fact. And if it's been warmer in the past, and it wasn't catastrophic and deadly, if it gets warmer today, there's a chance that it might not be catastrophic and deadly when it gets warmer now. And so when you hear hurricanes, earthquakes, polar bears dying, old ladies falling over of heat stroke, dead in the street, that might not actually happen. It might actually be pretty nice. What are you laughing at? This is serious. I'm a serious teacher. Watch me teach. I teach you so hard. Watch. And a bit more evidence that they don't like the medieval warm period. Here's David Deming, a geoscientist from the University of Oklahoma. He found that if you dig a hole in the ground and take isotopes from the Earth, you could get a proxy of about how warm or cold it was in the past based on the Earth layers. So he did this, and he published a 100-year history of North American temperatures using only Earth samples. And it was really cool. I mean, that's a 100-year history of temperature. So he published this in Science, a scientific journal. And he said, with the publication of the article in Science, his findings, I gained significant credibility in the community of scientists working on climate change. They thought I was one of them, someone who would pervert science in the service of social and political causes. So one of them let his guard down. A major person working in the area of climate change and global warming sent me an astonishing email that said, we have to get rid of the medieval warm period. So, any of you who are wondering if this is just bad science or outright fraud, this should get rid of any suspicions you had right now. That this isn't, when you see bad global warming science, this is not a mistake. And I'm very careful about throwing around the word conspiracy, because when people hear conspiracy, they think, we never landed on the moon, Martians put things in my kidneys. But, yeah, I know. But every once in a while, there's a real one. And us crazy folk are vindicated, and here's some vindication for me right here. Let's move on to the next slide. So, I'm going to move on to something that happened recently in the past year. This wasn't in my last class, so you're all getting something new, except for Eklund and the Shirtlift kids. You've all seen this before. But everyone else, this is new for you. So sit down and pay attention. Eklund and Shirtlift, you guys can go ahead and goof off and start doing this. We feel that climate science is, in its current situation, too important to be kept under wraps. We hereby release a random selection of correspondence code and document. Hopefully it will give some insight into the science and the people behind it. This is a limited time offer, download now, and then here's an anonymous Russian entity. So what the heck does this mean? Well, just this past November, November 2009, someone hacked into the University of East Anglia and got into their climate research unit server and downloaded thousands upon thousands of emails, over 10 years worth of email and documents, and just posted it online. And said, here you go, read them all. These are private emails. Yeah, the hacking was technically illegal, but they're public now, so I got them for you. What's the climate research unit at East Anglia, and why should you care about their email? Well, here's what Dean McLeod of CBSNews.com said about them. In global warming circles, the Climate Research Unit wields outsized influence. It claims the world's largest temperature data set, and its work and mathematical models were incorporated into the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's 2007 report. The report is what the Environmental Protection Agency acknowledged it relies on most heavily when concluding carbon dioxide emissions endanger public health and should be regulated. The science from the CRU is what they use to justify climate change law that affect your lives. So their science had better be good if it's being used